I was 28 years old when my father grabbed me by the arm in front of everyone at my mother's wake and told me to get out. Not quietly. Not with any dignity. He shouted it across the funeral home in Riverside, California, while my mother's body lay in the casket behind us. The room went silent. 50 people, aunts, uncles, neighbors who'd known me since I was 6, all stared as Robert Mitchell, my own father, dragged his only son toward the exit like I was some kind of criminal. "You don't belong here, David," he hissed through clenched teeth, his face red with rage. "You never did." My older half-sister Jennifer stood by the casket with her arms crossed, smirking. Her husband Marcus nodded in approval. My father's new wife, Patricia, a woman who was only 6 years older than me, watched from the corner, her manicured nails wrapped around a glass of wine like she was at a cocktail party instead of my mother's funeral. I didn't fight back. I didn't make a scene. I just left. Because that's what I'd been taught to do my entire life. Disappear when it was convenient for Robert Mitchell. But 3 days later, everything changed. 3 days later, I got a phone call from a lawyer named Howard Greenberg that would expose the truth my mother had hidden for 28 years. A truth that would destroy the family that had just humiliated me. A truth that my father and Jennifer never saw coming. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand how we got here. My mother, Sarah Mitchell, died of pancreatic cancer on October 12, 2023. She was 54 years old. The diagnosis came fast. 6 weeks from the first symptom to her last breath in room 304 of Riverside Community Hospital. I was there every single day. Every morning before my shift at the mechanic shop. Every evening after work. And all through the night when the pain got so bad she couldn't sleep. My father visited twice. Twice in 6 weeks. Both times he brought Patricia, who spent the entire visit on her phone, scrolling through Instagram while my mother struggled to breathe. Jennifer came once. She stayed for 20 minutes, asked if Mom had sorted out her affairs, and left. You see, my family had never been normal. Robert Mitchell married my mother when she was 19 and he was 35. She was a waitress at the diner where he used to eat lunch. He was a successful commercial real estate developer, divorced with one daughter, Jennifer, who was 12 at the time, and made it very clear she didn't want a new mother, especially one who was barely older than a teenager herself. I was born a year later, in 1995. And from what I've been told, Jennifer hated me from the moment I drew breath. Growing up, I always felt like an outsider in my own home. We lived in a massive house in the hills. 5 bedrooms, a pool, a 3-car garage, but it never felt like mine. Jennifer got the master bedroom on the 2nd floor. I got the small room next to the laundry. Jennifer got a BMW for her 16th birthday. I got a used bicycle from a garage sale. My father treated me like I was a burden, an accident, a mistake he tolerated because he loved my mother. And maybe he did love her once. But by the time I was in high school, he'd already moved on emotionally. Started working late. Started going on business trips that lasted weeks. My mother never complained. She just kept being the perfect wife, the perfect homemaker, the woman who smiled through everything even when her eyes were screaming. When I was 23, my father filed for divorce, said he'd grown apart from my mother. 2 months later, he married Patricia Hollis, a 32-year-old former client who looked like she belonged in a Real Housewives show. My mother got the divorce settlement, a small condo in a decent neighborhood, and $75,000. Meanwhile, Robert kept the house, the business, the cars, everything. My mother didn't fight it. She signed the papers and moved into that little 2-bedroom condo on Magnolia Avenue without a single word of anger. I moved in with her. I couldn't stand watching my father parade around with Patricia while my mother tried to rebuild her life from scratch. We were close, my mom and I. We'd always been close. She was the only person in that family who actually loved me. For 5 years, it was just us. She got a job at the public library. I worked at Eddie's auto repair. We'd have dinner together every night, watch old movies, talk about everything and nothing. She seemed happy, or at least content. And then came the diagnosis. The funeral was held at Greenwood Memorial, the same place where my grandmother had been buried 12 years earlier. It was a cold, gray morning, and rain was threatening but hadn't started yet. I arrived early to help set up the flower arrangements, white lilies, her favorite, and to make sure the photo display was arranged correctly. Pictures of my mother smiling, laughing, holding me as a baby, standing in front of the Grand Canyon during the one real vacation we'd ever taken together. My father showed up 30 minutes late with Patricia on his arm, wearing a black dress that was far too tight and far too expensive for a funeral. Jennifer arrived with Marcus, her husband of 6 years, a corporate attorney who spoke in the same condescending tone as my father. They didn't acknowledge me. They walked right past me like I was part of the furniture. The service was small. My mother didn't have many friends. Robert had isolated her over the years, and after the divorce, she'd become even more withdrawn. But the people who came loved her. Her co-workers from the library, Mrs. Henderson from next door, a few cousins from her side of the family who'd stayed in touch. I gave the eulogy. I talked about her kindness, her strength, her resilience. I talked about how she'd raised me to be a good man even when the world tried to tell her I wasn't worth the effort. My voice cracked twice, but I got through it. Jennifer rolled her eyes. After the service, everyone gathered in the reception hall. There was coffee, sandwiches, small talk. I stood in the corner, alone, trying to process the fact that my mother was gone, and I was now completely alone in this world. That's when my father approached me. "David," he said, his voice low but sharp. "We need to talk." I looked up at him. At 63, he was still an imposing man. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver hair and cold blue eyes that had never once looked at me with warmth. "About what?" I asked. "About your presence here." I blinked. "What?" Jennifer appeared beside him, arms crossed. "Dad's right. You're making people uncomfortable." "I'm making people uncomfortable?" I repeated, my voice rising slightly. "This is my mother's funeral." "She was my stepmother," Jennifer snapped. "And you're being disrespectful." "How am I being disrespectful?" My father stepped closer. "You know damn well how. You've been telling people lies about this family for years, about me, about how I treated your mother." "I haven't told anyone anything," I said, my heart pounding. "I've kept my mouth shut for 28 years. "Bullshit," Jennifer hissed. "We know you've been talking. We know you've been trying to turn people against us." I looked around. People were starting to stare. Mrs. Henderson looked concerned. My cousin Amy had her phone out, recording. "I think you should leave," my father said, his hand gripping my shoulder. "Before this gets ugly." "This is my mother's funeral," I said again, louder this time. "You can't kick me out." "Yes, I can," he said, and then he did exactly that. He grabbed my arm and physically pulled me toward the door. I stumbled, caught off guard, and he shoved me into the hallway. "Don't come back," he said. "Don't call. Don't show up at the house. You're not part of this family anymore." And then he slammed the door in my face. I stood there in the empty hallway, shaking, humiliated, destroyed. I could hear people whispering inside. I could hear Jennifer laughing. I left. I got in my beat-up Honda Civic and drove back to the condo. The condo that was now mine, I guess, though I hadn't even thought about that yet. I sat on the couch in the dark and cried for the first time since my mother died. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I'd been erased from the family, written out of the story, forgotten, but I was wrong. 3 days later, on a Tuesday morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. "Is this David Mitchell?" a man's voice asked. "Yeah. Who's this?" "My name is Howard Greenberg. I'm an attorney with Greenberg and Associates here in Riverside. I was your mother's lawyer." I sat up straight. "Okay. I'm calling regarding your mother's estate. I need you to come to my office as soon as possible. There are some matters we need to discuss." "What kind of matters?" "I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come in today? Say 2 o'clock? I hesitated. "Did my father hire you to—" "Your father has nothing to do with this," Howard said firmly. "This is about your mother's will. And trust me, Mr. Mitchell, you're going to want to hear this." Howard Greenberg's office was in a small building downtown, sandwiched between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. It wasn't fancy. No marble floors or floor-to-ceiling windows like the places my father's attorneys worked. But it was clean, professional, and Howard himself seemed like a decent guy. Mid-50s, graying beard, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He shook my hand and gestured for me to sit. "First of all," he said, "I'm very sorry for your loss. Your mother was a good woman." "Thank you." He opened a folder on his desk. "I'm going to get straight to the point, David. Your mother came to see me about 8 months ago. She wanted to draft a new will." I frowned. "A new will?" I didn't know she had anything to leave. Howard smiled slightly. That's what she wanted people to think. He slid a document across the desk. I picked it up, scanning the legal jargon, trying to make sense of it. "I don't understand," I said. "Your mother," Howard explained, "received a settlement from your father during their divorce. $75,000, correct?" "Yeah." "She didn't spend it. She invested it. Very wisely, I might add. Over the course of 5 years, with the help of a financial advisor I recommended, she turned that $75,000 into just over $420,000. I stared at him. "What?" "She also had a life insurance policy. A small one, $50,000, with you listed as the sole beneficiary. And she owned the condo outright. It's worth about $280,000 in today's market." My head was spinning. I had no idea." "She didn't want you to know." "She didn't want anyone to know. She lived modestly, worked her library job, saved every penny. She wanted to make sure you were taken care of after she was gone." I felt tears welling up. "She did this for me." "Every cent," Howard said. "But that's not all." He pulled out another document. This one looked older, more worn. "Your mother also left you this. It's a letter. She asked me to give it to you after her death, and to make sure you read it before we proceed with anything else." He handed me a sealed envelope. My name was written on the front in my mother's handwriting. "I'll give you some privacy," Howard said, standing up. "Take your time." He left the room, closing the door softly behind him. I sat there for a long moment, just staring at the envelope. Then, with shaking hands, I opened it. "My dearest David, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I'm so sorry I couldn't stay longer. I'm sorry I won't be there to see you get married, have children, build the life you deserve. But I need you to know something, and I need you to hear it from me." You are the best thing that ever happened to me. From the moment you were born, you were my purpose, my joy, my reason for getting up every morning. And I failed you in so many ways. I let your father treat you like you didn't matter. I let Jennifer bully you. I stayed silent when I should have fought for you. But I want you to know the truth now. The truth I kept from everyone, including you, because I was scared. Because I was weak. Robert Mitchell is not your biological father. I stopped breathing. When I met Robert, I was already pregnant. I was 19 years old, working at that diner, and I'd just gotten out of a relationship with a man named Daniel Crawford. Danny was my high school sweetheart. We were going to get married, start a life together. But his parents didn't approve of me. I was from the wrong side of town, didn't have money, didn't have prospects. They sent him away to college back east and told him to forget about me. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after he left. I tried to reach him, but his parents blocked every attempt. I was alone, terrified, and broke. That's when I met Robert. He was older, successful, charming. He seemed like a savior. When I told him I was pregnant, he said it didn't matter. He said he'd marry me, raise the baby as his own, give us a good life. And for a while, he did. But Robert Mitchell is a cruel man, David. He held that secret over my head for 28 years. He reminded me constantly that he'd taken me in, that he'd saved me from being a single mother. He used it to control me, to diminish me, to make me feel like I owed him everything. He treated you the way he did because you weren't his blood. You were a reminder of my past, of my mistake. And Jennifer knew. Robert told her when she was 16, during one of their arguments about you. She's known the truth for 12 years and never said a word. I'm telling you this now because I don't want you to spend the rest of your life wondering why they treated you the way they did. It wasn't your fault. It was never your fault. You deserved better than both of them. I've left you everything I have. It's not much, but it's yours. Use it to build a life away from them. Find happiness. Find peace. And David, please forgive me for not being stronger, for not telling you sooner, for not protecting you the way a mother should. I love you more than words can say. Always, Mom. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes. Hours. Time stopped meaning anything. Robert Mitchell wasn't my father. My entire life, every insult, every dismissal, every moment of feeling like I didn't belong, it all made sense now. I was a living, breathing reminder of a secret he'd agreed to keep, but resented every single day. And Jennifer knew. For 12 years, she'd known I wasn't her real brother, and she'd used that knowledge to justify her cruelty. There was a knock on the door. Howard came back in, reading my face immediately. "She told you," he said softly. I nodded, unable to speak. He sat down. "There's one more thing, David. Your mother did some research before she died. She found your biological father." My head snapped up. "What?" Howard pulled out another piece of paper. "Daniel Crawford. He's 51 years old, lives in Portland, Oregon. He's a high school teacher, married, 2 daughters. Your mother hired a private investigator to track him down about a year ago." Did she contact him? No. She wanted to, but she was afraid. Afraid of disrupting his life. Afraid he wouldn't want to know you. But she left his contact information for you, in case you ever wanted to reach out. He slid the paper across the desk. I stared at the name, the address, the phone number. Daniel Crawford. My real father. "What do I do with this?" I whispered. "That's up to you," Howard said. But first, we need to handle your mother's estate. And there's something else you should know. A what? Your mother instructed me to file a formal claim against your father for the full value of the community property he should have split with her during the divorce. She was entitled to half of everything he accumulated during their marriage. The business, the properties, the investments. She signed away her rights under duress, and she documented it. We have emails, recordings, evidence of coercion. I stared at him. I'm saying your mother left you a legal weapon, David. If you want to pursue it, we can. We can go after Robert Mitchell for what he owes you. It could be millions. I left Howard's office in a daze. I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at the letter, at Daniel Crawford's contact information, at the legal documents that could potentially destroy Robert Mitchell's life. My mother had given me a choice. I could take the money she'd left me, the $420,000, the life insurance, the condo, and disappear. Start over somewhere new. Let Robert and Jennifer believe they'd won, or I could fight. I pulled out my phone and stared at it for a long time. Then I made a decision. I called Jennifer. She answered on the third ring, her voice dripping with irritation. "What do you want, David?" "I want to talk," I said calmly. "About Mom's will." She laughed. "Mom didn't have a will. She didn't have anything." "That's where you're wrong." There was a pause. "What are you talking about?" "I just met with her attorney. Turns out Mom was smarter than any of us gave her credit for. She left me everything, $420,000 in investments, a life insurance policy, the condo, and something else." "What?" "The truth." Another pause, longer this time. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. You've known for 12 years. Robert told you when you were 16. Silence. "Mom left me a letter, Jennifer. She told me everything. About Daniel Crawford. About how Robert held that secret over her head for 28 years. About how he treated me like garbage because I wasn't his blood." I could hear her breathing on the other end. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "I'm going to give you and Robert one chance. One chance to apologize for what you did at Mom's funeral. One chance to acknowledge that you treated me like I was nothing my entire life. If you do that, if you show even a shred of human decency, I'll take what Mom left me and walk away. You'll never hear from me again." "And if we don't?" Jennifer asked, her voice shaking now. "Then I'm going to file a claim for everything Mom was entitled to in the divorce. And according to her attorney, that's about half of everything Robert owns. His business, his properties, his precious reputation. You can't do that. Watch me." I hung up. 20 minutes later, my phone exploded. 6 calls from Jennifer, 4 from Robert, 3 from Marcus, 2 from Patricia. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I called Daniel Crawford. The phone rang 3 times before a man's voice answered. "Hello?" "Hi," I said, my voice shaking. "My name is David Mitchell. I think you might be my father." There was a long silence. Then, in a voice thick with emotion, he said, "I've been waiting 28 years for this call. 2 weeks later, I met Daniel Crawford in person. He flew down to California with his wife, Margaret. They brought their daughters, my half-sisters, Emily and Rachel. We met at a coffee shop in Riverside, and the moment I saw him, I knew. We had the same eyes, the same nose, the same hands. He told me everything. How he'd loved my mother. How his parents had forced him away. How he'd tried to find her for years, but never could. How he'd carried the guilt of abandoning her, not knowing she was pregnant, for nearly 3 decades. I would have come back for her, he said, tears streaming down his face. If I'd known about you, I would have come back. Margaret held my hand. You have a family now? She said. We're your family. Robert and Jennifer never apologized. Instead, they lawyered up and tried to fight the claim. But my mother had documented everything, every threat, every manipulation, every instance of financial coercion during the divorce. Howard Greenberg was relentless. The case settled 6 months later. Robert paid me $2.3 million. I used that money to go back to school. I'm studying mechanical engineering now at Portland State University. I live 20 minutes from Daniel and Margaret. I have dinner with them twice a week. Emily and Rachel text me daily. I'm building the life my mother always wanted for me. Jennifer tried to reach out once, about a year after everything went down. She left a voicemail saying she was sorry, that she'd been wrong, that she wanted to make things right. I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. Some people don't deserve second chances, but my mother, she deserved everything. And even though she's gone, she's still taking care of me. Because that's what real parents do. That's what love looks like. And now, finally, I understand what it means to be part of a family. Also, watch the incredible story to the left of your screen about the man who was mocked by his father for being broke and proved he was worth millions.